So I'm very honored and pleased to give this presentation about Europe, about the European Union, and also the major challenges the European Union is facing now. I will also touch upon Taiwan-EU relations for your reference. So I'm very delighted that you can take part in this English forum. I think this is a good opportunity for you not only to practice your English, but also to get to know more about Europe, about the European Union, in a very general introduction. I'm also very pleased to share with you some of my thoughts, my experience in the European Union. I worked in Brussels before. I also spent a few years in London. And then in my long career in the diplomatic service, I also traveled to many European countries, or maybe to most European countries, to be in charge of Taiwan-EU, Taiwan-European relations. But before I make my presentation, I just want to draw your attention to some of the latest developments. This is a very interesting time for all of us to watch what's going on in Europe. For instance, the European Parliament election was held earlier in June, from June 6 to June 9. It's a 4-day election for members of the European Parliament. Altogether, there are 720 seats. So it's a major election for the next 5 years of the European Union, including the Parliament and then also including the Commission, the Council. And then immediately after the European Parliament election, the French President Macron immediately announced a snap election for the French National Assembly. As you may remember, the first round of the French general election was held on June 30th, and then the second round will be Sunday this week, July 7th. In addition to that, the United Kingdom, even though is no longer a member of the European Union, the United Kingdom actually is holding its general election just today, July the 4th, because of the time difference. So it will start the voting in the afternoon, in this afternoon. So the elections in Europe, of course, have a great impact, not only in European politics, but also in international relations too. For instance, as a result of this year's European Parliament election, we can see some interesting changes. For instance, European politics is now moving more to the right. As you may be aware, in European politics, normally we call center, left, and right. But in this European Parliament election, it is very clear the trend is moving to the right. And in some countries, even the far right is gaining a lot of momentum. For instance, France, Italy, Belgium, Austria, even Germany. The second interesting change is that the center parties, for instance, the EPP group, the is more center right, and then the Social Democrats group and is center left. So they are still the mainstream of European politics. But in general, the trend is moving to the right. So there will be an impact on some important policies, issues the European Union is facing. For instance, immigrants. Immigration actually has become a serious problem for the European Union for the past few years. And then climate change, the environment. So in those issues, obviously, the right, the far right have their agenda. So they will give a lot of influence in the future operations of the European Union. The competition between United States and China, but now this is a major problem for all countries, especially the European Union. But as you can see here, the European Union actually has also taken a different approach. That means the European Union is not following the United States completely. I'll give you some examples here. This year, from April 13 to 16, the Chancellor of Germany, Olaf Scholz, he led a big delegation to visit China. He spent 3 days in China. Together with him were all the major CEOs of German major companies. That means the economic partnership between Germany and China is still very strong. And Germany simply does not want to lose the Chinese market. Then after that, from May 5th to 11th, Xi Jinping, China's president, visited France, Serbia, and Hungary. So in all those countries, Xi Jinping also received a very high level of welcome, but also a very in-depth discussion of cooperation between China and those countries. So these are some of the facts. As you may know, even the Prime Minister of Italy, Meloni, immediately after G7 meeting, she made the announcement that very soon she's going to visit China. This is another indication of how the European countries are playing a part more independently of the United States policy. EU-Taiwan relations. EU-Taiwan relations, this is also a topic you will be interested. Again, see, we certainly need to see the difference between our prospects, our forecast, our ideas, our vision, and then also we have to take into account the realities we are facing. The European Union is important for Taiwan, and Taiwan is also important for the European Union. Again, we have to understand the restraints, the limits, the limitations, and then we can see how far we can accomplish, how far we can go. Between Taiwan and Europe, actually, we had a very difficult time after Taiwan was forced to leave the United Nations in 1971. That means after 1971, we had a very hard time in our relations with the European countries, because European countries actually are more following the international trend, international standards, international position, especially taken by the United Nations. So in the 70s, and also in the 80s, actually, we had very difficult time. We almost had very little contacts with countries in Europe, and that was a fact. And then from 1981 to 1994, Taiwan's economy started to take off. So after we built up our economy, after Taiwan became important as a trading nation, as a major economy in some of the products, so we started to expand our relations with European countries. So we started some bilateral trade negotiation. But at that time, the European Union or countries of the European community actually were very hesitant to enter into such consultation with Taiwan. So for a long time, so up to 1994, so we did not have direct trade economic consultation. Whenever we had consultation, we chose a third country, for instance, like Singapore. So we sent our people to Singapore, and the European community also sent their people to Singapore. Then we started our trade consultation there. But the situation started to change in 1994. We had trade consultation in Taipei or Brussels, alternately. So 1 year in Taipei, 1 year in Brussels. Then we set the example, set the routine practice. So until now, this is still the case. But two events are more important. One is 2003. Finally, when the European Union decided to open its office in Taiwan, it's called European Economic and Trade Office, EETO. But this is the first representative of the European Union in Taiwan. His name is Brian McDonald. He's a career diplomat. He from Ireland. At that time, actually, I was the Director General for European Affairs. So I helped him to set up the office. When he came to Taiwan, actually, he was all by himself. He was assisted by the Belgian office in Taipei. But we started to help him to set up the office. But today, the European office in Taiwan is very well established. So that's a major step forward in Taiwan, European countries. And then after a few years, 2011, actually we started from 2010, the European Union decided to grant a visa waiver status to Taiwan. 免签证政策. But that's another important step forward in Taiwan EU relations, because not many countries actually have received such a status. So when the European Union decided to grant a visa waiver for Taiwan, actually that was highly welcomed. So that means for you, for me, for all of us in Taiwan, we can travel freely to most European countries. So it's not only EU 27. As I mentioned, actually Schengen area actually covers much more than European Union. So it's a major breakthrough in Taiwan-EU relations. The setup of the EU office in Taiwan and then the granting of visa waiver. You may wonder how important is Taiwan-EU relations. But actually, EU is Taiwan's fourth largest trading partner. So only after China, United States, and Japan. So 27 countries together actually formulated a very important economic bloc for Taiwan's economic outreach. And then Taiwan is the EU's 15th largest trading partner. But more importantly, the European Union actually is the largest investor, foreign investor in Taiwan. Not many people have noticed that. We always say maybe the United States or maybe Japan. Actually, the European Union as a whole today is the largest foreign investor in Taiwan. So it's more than 50 billion US dollars. The two-way trade now is close to 68 billion US dollars, but still increasing. So we see a lot of potential in Taiwan-EU partnership. Here I'd like to quote what the head of European Union office in Taiwan, Philip, he said that why Taiwan-EU partnership relations are important. Because Taiwan plays a fundamental role in our Indo-Pacific region due to our shared values, the values of democracy, human rights, rule of law, etc. Then deep economic ties, trade, investment, and then Taiwan's key role in global supply chain. In global supply chain resilience, referring to semiconductor, high-tech chips, etc. So in the area of high-tech, we can also see increasing cooperation between Taiwan and the European Union. The cooperation will continue to rise in the future. So these are the values, these are the important benefits between Taiwan and the European Union.
Good morning, investors. My name is Ji Shen, currently in the internship program under the ETO. So I have two questions for you. Yes. First is about trade negotiation. You mentioned that the European Union and China is, under a relatively friendly relationship because the visit. But recently, EU is gonna charge like the 38.1% tariff on EV from China, and China threatened to do a countermeasure on Airbus or agriculture. So do you think the situation is escalating, especially in trade? That is first questions. The second question is based on your opinion. Do you think that European Union combine political issue and economic issue together, or see these two topics separately regarding EU-Taiwan relations? Thank you.
Thank you. This is a very interesting question about trade negotiations between Taiwan and the European Union. You may remember that the European Union and China concluded actually the comprehensive agreement on investment actually a few years ago. But even now, the investment agreement between China and the European Union has been frozen by the European Parliament and also by the European Commission. That means so the relationship between the European Union and China have encountered more difficulties. The electric vehicle, of course, is another issue. There are more trade issues between China and the European Union, not to mention the more than 400 billion trade deficit the European Union has suffered. So for the moment, we see a lot of relations being frozen on hold between the European Union and China. You may wonder, this is also a good opportunity for Taiwan. But that is true. actually for years, we are also interested in promoting our economic partnership with the European Union. I mentioned earlier, the European Union actually is the #1 investor in Taiwan. So an investment agreement between Taiwan and the European Union certainly is mutually beneficial. It's good for Taiwan, it's also good for the European Union, maybe better for the European Union. But because of political consideration, the European Union has always been very slow, very hesitant to step up more negotiation. But fortunately, in recent years, we have more consultation between Taiwan and the European Union. So I still feel that we can make some progress. However slow, we can still make some progress. So when the time is right, maybe we can have a breakthrough, just like the visa waiver program. Secondly, you mentioned about how important political factor and also economic factor, so how they are interacted. But actually, both are important. But for the European Union, I think economic benefits, economic factors are always very important for the European Union. But they have to strike a balance between the two. So politically, there's always a voice within the European Union how to have its more independent policy. So not always following the steps of the United States. So that means the European Union also wants to play its own part in international system, in the international community. So that means economic factors actually are always more important, but political factor cannot be underestimated.
Thank you, Professor. And I want to ask about the Chip Act of the European version. And also, my first question is because right now the semiconductor plays a very important role in worldwide. And also, like multinations, corporations, think tank, and the Congress of the European Union, they have the high demanding from the advanced semiconductor chips. So that's the reason TSMC built a factory in the German instead of the Czech. But my question is, how about the domestic policies to the European relationship toward Taiwan? Because right now the extremely right parties, they don't want to open their domestic market. Furthermore question is they have a terrific and also have so many restrictions on the foreigner. So that's the reason semiconductor they have a huge demanding on the international talent. But right now Europeans are close their door, and also what will the cost in the near future, because right now no market is loose and also become the third party of because of the election.
The first question is about the politics of the European Union, especially after the European Parliament elections. As I mentioned, the pendulum now swings to the right. But again, you see the core power within the European Union, which is still the center, the centrists. The coalition, the cooperation between EPP group, SPD group, the Socialist group, and then the Renew group, the others. So the three groups actually are still in the majority. So that means the politics of the European Union basically will remain unchanged. But of course, some of the issues the far right has emphasized will have more attention, will have more influence. But I think the relationship between Taiwan and the European Union will not be affected, but actually maybe even better. We feel that the right group, the far right group actually basically are still friendly to Taiwan. So economic cooperation between Taiwan and Europe, I think will be unchanged, will remain unchanged. And then you see, we mentioned about the TSMC's investment project in Dresden, Germany. I hope that project will be important because this is the set policy of the European Union to increase its self-sufficiency of chip supply. They want to increase the semiconductor chips from 10% to 20%, so up to 2030. But of course, this is a very ambitious vision. I don't think this is really realistic. I don't think it will not make that big progress. But again, this is the trend for the European Union to follow up its chip industry self-sufficiency. But in that area, actually, there will be even more opportunities for Taiwan. Please.
Yes. Thank you, Ambassador. This is Danny Chen from Zaixing, and I would like to ask two questions. First is, although we have heard you say the increase of cooperation with Taiwan and Europe, do you think that we should somehow, since Europe, the EU don't want to leave the China and don't want to give up the market of China, so do you think that Taiwan has a chance to work with other big bodies, economical bodies around the world, such as Indonesia or India, these giant bodies around the world? And second is, do you think that there's a operational mechanism problem in EU since as a monarch? So I joined MUN and we studied that UK has left the EU, and a high reason or a important reason of that is because as you have mentioned, that the decisions in EU is binding. So since this is binding, this might not benefit those developed countries. And will the leading countries give up EU and to act themselves up? So such as France or Germany. Thank you.
Thank you. I think the first question is more relevant in today's discussion. Certainly the European Union is facing China as a major market, as a major economic partner, and then Taiwan is also a very important economic partner too. So we are not trying to force the European Union to make a choice between Taiwan and China. Economic partnership actually can be reinforced by many ways, including semiconductor, including TSMC's investment project in Germany, for instance. That means we can still do the best we can to strengthen our economic partnership with the European Union as a whole, regardless of the relationship, the partnership between the European Union and China. But of course, the trend now is more favorable for Taiwan because the European Union has defined China as an economic competitor in many areas, including the electric vehicles. And then the European Union has also defined China as a systemic rival, short of the enemy. That means the European Union now has tried to diversify its economic partnership with other countries, especially Taiwan. So this is a good opportunity for us. Certainly we can also strengthen our relationship with other countries like Indonesia, like India. But actually these are important economic partners too. I think there are still many things we can do. You see, so in our relations with the European Union countries and others. The UK's departure from the European Union, I feel that is obviously a political blunder. It's a mistake by the European Union, especially by conservatives, by the Conservative Party. So today is the election day of the UK. We will see that the Labour Party will be back to power after 14 years. So I'm very convinced. So in the future, we don't know when, the UK will have to review its policy towards the European Union. Because after, you see, just 3 or 4 years, you see, leaving the European Union, I think the UK's economy has already suffered a great deal. So it's obviously a mistake. I think the United Kingdom will review its policy in the future. Of course, we don't know when, because the UK left the European Union 2020, it's only 4 years ago. So maybe we can wait a few more years. Then the UK will realize that. Thank you. So,
as you mentioned about the United Nations, I would like to ask that, do you think there is any chance for Taiwan to get back in the United Nations as a formal member in the future? And if not, there is anything that we could do or we should do to getting even just as an observation? Thank you.
This is a big question. So the United Nations, of course, is still the most important international organization in the world, with 193 members. But again, we have to remember, not all countries are members of the United Nations. But some of the standards, regulations, rules set by the United Nations are important. So even though Taiwan is not a member of the United Nations, but we still follow all the rules and norms. We call it voluntary compliance. For instance, WHO, the World Health Organization, Taiwan, she has been trying to follow all the practice of the WHO. For other international organizations, especially United Nations related special agencies, like the ILO, International Labour Organization, ICAO, and UNFCCC. Every year, Taiwan has sent big delegations to take part in the UNFCCC meetings, the COP meetings. So we feel that it's important to formulate some linkage. But as you know, whether we can rejoin the United Nations, but I think this is still a long process. But we have witnessed some changes. The United States and a few other like-minded countries may want to review the resolution 2758 in 1971, which ruled that Taiwan was forced to leave the United Nations. So maybe that is a step forward. But I still feel that what is more important for Taiwan is really to build up our strength, to build up our international relations, our partnership, strategic partnership with other like-minded countries. So this is more important for the time being. So rejoining the United Nations certainly can be a long-term goal for Taiwan. And then at the same time, of course, we have to do everything we can to follow the international practice, to follow the rules of the international system. I think we can still do the best we can in this regard. So just for your information, you may have different ideas.
Thank you, Dad.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much for your attention and also for your questions. I think this is a very interesting opportunity, interesting occasion for all of you to take part in this English forum. So I certainly hope that you can also find time to practice on a daily basis. So it's important for you to get a good proficiency of English in your future career. So I'm very delighted to see so many young faces present this morning. I wish you more success for the future. I think you have done a good job. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Now we have 20-minute break time. Please come back and be seated at 10:20.